Hey, what's going on? What's up, people? Welcome to Wingless Rats. It's much darker now than it always is. Like always, we start off the show with a little bit of Mad Libs and a little bit of trivia. I got the mystery box here in case you want to know what's inside here. If you heard from last time, you would understand that it's pretty much the same thing it was last time. If you couldn't figure it last time, then this time you'll be able to know for sure. Well, anyways, welcome to the show. The number is 721-6014, and I am accepting your calls right now and throughout the show for the next hour. Well, I don't know, maybe 55 minutes, depending on when I start the show. All right. Excellent. All right, let's see what's going on. Let's talk about a little bit what's going on around town. Summer is winding down, that's for sure. And summer will soon be over, and school will be starting for everyone, including me, myself, and I. Looks like we got another call. Hello, welcome to Wingless Rats.
Quit being such a
Thank you. And you're hearing lots of calls like that throughout the show. So, it must have been when I mentioned school. All right. Thanks for your call. Lines are still open. All right, then. Okay, as I was saying, summer's ending. Sorry about that. School will be starting in like a couple weeks now. Couple weeks. Hello.
fucker.
Okay, I got your number down here. Now I know exactly what not to pick up. And I want to personally thank you for calling in and... Well, not really, but you get the idea. So anyways, guess what's in the mystery box? We can play a little bit of Mad Libs, or I can give you a little question of trivia. I wonder who's calling. Hello, welcome.
Fuck you.
Okay. Thanks for that. Some people out there don't have a anger issue, which they need to have some little bit of help with. Alright, some callers, you can call in and... Exactly. Huh? Alright. Let's see. I am now working on a movie. You should check it out. It's Wisconsin Project X. You should look it up over on www.christianackerman@christianackerman.com, or go to wisconsinprojectx.com and stuff like that. No. Okay. Thanks for that. All right. Let's play a little bit of Mad Libs. All right. So many. Wow, that's a lot of Mad Libs people have been playing. There we go. All right. Call in if you can give me a plural noun. If you can give me a plural noun, you should call in and give me a plural noun. Whatever. No? No one's calling? I need a plural noun. All right. Do you even know what a plural noun is? More than one of a person, place, or thing. Let me give you an example. Yes, of course. I'll be answering that soon. Hello. More than one of a person, place, or thing. More than one of a person, place, or thing. Hello? Hi. I can hear you fine. I already said. You want to do trivia? Movie trivia. All right. Let's see. Let's see. Oh, I don't have the movie book, but I can just do regular trivia instead. All right. Oh, here's some movie trivia. Who could talk to animals? That is correct. Dr. Dolittle is correct. All right, thank you. All right. All right, anyone want to play either Mad Libs, or we can do some trivia, or you can ask what's in the mystery box. Well, don't ask what's in the mystery box. You have to guess. 20 questions. Fair enough, fair and simple. You can call in any time now. Which you will. I have no doubt about that. If you just joined us, this is Wingless Rats. I'm your host, Scotto. And we have Mad Libs. We have a little bit of junior trivia, which is pretty easy for some people. Not for all, but you know. And then we have a mystery box right here. Hence the question mark. If you put a question mark on anything, you can determine whether or not it's a mystery beyond mystery. Don't look at me like that. Stop it. All right, anyways. Call in, and we can have your 3 choices. All right, then. Very well. Now I have to do something to bite my time. Okay. I've been doing this for, let's say, more than a year now, and I have to say it's been somewhat of an honor to be on MCAT. I'll just basically run through the story of how I even got this show, per se. So anyways, it all started about in September of 2005, I think. Yeah, I'm going to go with 2005. It was my junior year of high school, and I was, just face it, I was getting bored, and I wanted to do something. So I decided to, let's say, make a movie. I wanted to make my own movie. So I tried to get it from the school because, they lend out cameras, but, you have to be like a senior. So, at the time I was a junior once again. I was trying to get a camera, of course, and they didn't give me one. So I was like, oh man, what am I gonna do? So I talked to a guy. His name also was Scott, and he could help with the. He worked down over at the flagship office at Big Sky, and I basically generally asked him, how I could do this since he's, because many speak of him as a great. He has a lot of connections with this kind of stuff, so I asked him, and he basically looked it up for me. And MCAT, what do you know, had a producers meeting, so me, I just went to the producers meeting and I just kind of, an hour basically. We watched a 20 to 30-minute video on being a producer basically. This was producer training, which we were training for. And normally it would cost someone about $20 to be, be part of MCAT and stuff. But luckily I had the flagship commission pay for it for me. What else? Let me think. All right, so I had them pay for it. And this wasn't the first time I met Christian. Considering I remember the first time I met him, I really didn't. I was too young. Actually, that was only like. Before I went in high school was the summer before high school is when I actually first met him. This is when I wanted to do another movie. This is when my basic dream of actually doing a movie began, which basically just kind of crapped out in the end. So that's why I basically didn't bother with MCAT after a while, and then junior year I came back and I just got a new appreciation for it. Well, then I started to make a movie. Yeah, I definitely just did some shots around, and it was called a movie. I'm a little embarrassed of kind of saying what movie it was, but it was Bear Attack. It's a mixture of Child's Play, Chucky, those movies, and it wasn't a dangerous thing. It was just like me basically being afraid of some stuffed bear. Who didn't have a knife or anything. It didn't even have fingers to attack me with. It was just kind of like a giant teddy bear in a way. Just so it was kind of like a combat between us, and that's how it went. It was very, very embarrassing. If you ever get a chance to see that movie, I suggest you just stop and think for a second. So anyways, the reason why I got on live television is considering the fact I was editing one day. It was Friday night. I didn't have anything better to do, knowing me, but that's just me. So I was editing in the edit bay, from some certain time till 9 o'clock, because 9 o'clock was basically the gist of when MCAT was closed on. It was closed on maybe 5. MCAT closes at 5 on Fridays, which is, but I get special privileges. But that's not the point. That's not the topic of discussion today. What is I was editing on Friday when I guess Friday was one of those days where you could, when it used to, MCAT used to be open for a lot longer period of time, about 2 years ago. And I know I was editing, and then I heard something about some live show going on, and Christian, it was just some stupid. Well, it wasn't. It was all right. It was kind of like we tried, and I loosely used the word tried to do a parody on American Idol, where I was the contestant and Christian was the so-called Simon. It was it lasted probably about 5 or 6 minutes. We were on there doing that, maybe even less, but most of the rest of the time, Street Legal, the real Jack Kohlberg, played for basically the whole hour, and just whatever. And anyways, Christian, he said it to me that maybe I should try out let's say his show, because by then I just heard he had his own live show, Ascot Live, every second and fourth Monday of it every month, except for the summer, because he's been working on his Wisconsin Project X, which you can also look up over on Christian Ackerman at christianackerman.com for more details about Wisconsin Project X, which I'm in the movie, and I am a crazy fool who becomes even crazier as the movie draws out. And by the tone of my voice, you can also tell that I am not that excited about doing this show today. I'm sorry, I'm not. So I did his show. I played, well, basically, this is when he did his 1950s soap E opera, and emphasis on the E, because it was soap, and then it was E, and then it was opera, or it was opera as I called it. Or many people call it opera. I'm not like the first person to call it opera. And so anyways, I was on it for a little bit, and then I, whatever, just kind of just went with it, and it was just like, okay, this was all right, I guess. It was fun. I had a lot of fun. It was great, And then we kind of, the format of Ascot Live really changed throughout the time. Some people thought it was just kind of like a entertainment show. They didn't never know, no one really even called in. But even though it was basically a call-in show when it started out before I was there, it ended up basically being a call-in show towards the end. Just kind of just like whatever, and then we just started doing the call-in show. Of course, I started my call-in show soon after Rapid Sand Crabs did theirs, which is on pretty much the same status of mine. It's on the same weeks as mine, but it's not. It's on Tuesdays from 7:30 to 8:30. You should check it out. They play music, and they ignore calls a lot. So I haven't seen it for a while, but it's a good show. Eric started off with. And so did Kurt. Kurt is the one who basically generally produces the show and starts the show, and he has different guests. He has had different people he's known and I've known. Basically, we all together went to choir, and yeah, I'm sorry, I went to choir. Get over it. And I'm still gonna go to choir, so back off. Anyways. Basically they had a live call-in show with people being whatever, and as you know how people always are on call-in shows, if you ever watch call-in shows, if they get a talk on the air, they always try to get away with a little bit of F-bombing and SHing, but hey, yeah, that's them. I just think they're jealous, if they wanted to do their own show and do this, whatever. If they want to basically, oh yeah, and speaking of which, if you want to have a show that basically has nothing but swearing in it, and you like swearing a lot, apparently from my callers so far, always tune into a lot of the MCAT shows after dark, which viewer discretion is advised. But if you do probably swear too much, they'll either not put you on, or they put you on like at 2 a.m. if it's that bad, which I'm probably pretty sure it will be that bad. But, I'm not really that optimistic about some of my callers having their own show. But, of course, I always like to say that it's always possible for anyone to be a producer of their own live call-in show. They can do camera work. They can shoot their own movies, music videos, whatever. They have great editing bays, not just your regular computer screen. They have nice... I don't know if I can say this, but they have Macs, not PC, but Mac. They have a nice editing, but of course, you come here, you can rent cameras for 2 days basically, and you can shoot whatever whatever your heart contents. But this is basically the downright thing. If you ever use any of the MCAT's equipment, you're gonna have to be and do any movies. Like let's say you're shooting your wedding, you're gonna have to produce a short thing for MCAT to actually show, just to know that their equipment's not being wasted on just people who want to use the camera just for like little family vacations or whatever. So, oh yeah, back to the point. I did the Ask Scott thing for a little while where we had shows like soapy opera, 1950s soapy opera, where we did general soap opera stuff, um, hinged up drama a little bit, and we also had musical guests and stuff. What else did we have? We tried to have skits. Oh man, what's that one called? It was kind of like a hillbilly type hick type show. It's called, oh man, I just can't think of it now. It's like on the tip of my tongue. It starts with a D. Uh, oh, Defuncto Productions. That's what it was. Is where we, it was spelled incorrectly, but we kind of get the general gist of what it is to be hillbilly in that sense. So we basically on that show we talked about selling cow pies and all this kind of stuff, basically. So in most of the way most of the time we ended all these ascot shows is, Jack would always be on his guitar once in a while, just doing his thing. And so of course Rapid Sand Crabs started their show, and they think I stole their idea personally, because I started my show at least a month or two after they started their Rapid Sand Crabs. But to say the truth, they wouldn't have known about basically MCAT unless I didn't actually come up to Scott. But I don't really like to mention that stuff as much. All right. Okay, so my very, very first episode, I was wearing a Montana Grizzly sweatshirt. I had somewhat short hair, but not too long. At that age, I just kind of wanted to have semi-long, semi-short hair. Hair that didn't, wasn't considered a butch haircut, but wasn't too long. This is the kind of hair I had. That's the kind of hair I basically had in the beginning of my shows, in which I had a little guy, a little kind of annoying, brace-faced guy. He went by the name of Shane. And I had him on my show for a whole year before, I just basically got rid of him. I don't know. I got rid of him because he's all right some of the time, but when he hangs out with you for too long, you just kind of like to push him out of the way. No offense, but it's just kind of what happened in the end. Sorry, Shane. So yeah, my first show, it went off basically like every other show I had during the year, where people got away with swearing. People made jokes, calling us basically childish names, and which most of these people are, and definitely from different places. But they all generally are going to the university campus, in which they watch and do. I don't know what they're doing over there. I don't want to know. All right, so I did that for a little bit. Of course, like every other summer, most of our general callers are the university students, which spend a lot of their time over at the university because they're at the dorms and they have nothing to do, so they call in and heckle us in some ways, if they're not heckling the Bobcats at the time. All right, enough of this. So I did the show. In the beginning, the way my format of my show was kind of like similar. It just kind of had just nothing but black and a kind of a black introduction, which I will show you right now. It's a kind of a lame introduction, beginning. It's nothing too extreme, but I'll show it to you in a jiffy. All right. So that was basically the gist of my beginning of show, because being a live show, starting off in the beginning, I basically just had to throw something together before my show would normally start. So I just basically threw that all together, and what do you know? It came out to be a show. So basically, I didn't have any like highlights of my show. I wanted to do a little kind of filming to kind of fill in some things, kind of like a news team. You know, I was kind of working on this for a while. You know, that kind of news team where they always have that turn. Oh yeah, speaking of which, oh, remember the Adventures of Johnny Quest? If you ever watched the the very first one on the cartoon, you know, they always have this kind of like jazzy type thing, where they, you know, basically they're sitting in the plane, and they're just like, you know, they introduce them who they are. They say Johnny Quest, and he's like this, and he turns. You know, each person has their own so-called turn. Everyone turns. If you ever watch it, make sure to watch for the turn. And you can basically, you know, find any type of introduction of this old type series if you go to YouTube, which anyone can. Well, you know, those who have the right equipment for the computer-wise, first of all. Let's see. All right, so after a while, I've been doing that Wingless Rats type thing, you know. I've had, you know, guests. Mostly me and Shane been doing it, but I've had one or two other people come on. Nothing special or anything. What else is there? All right, so where I shot most of my film, you know, a lot of times I started my show with, you know, the mystery box. I've always had had trivia later on, considering no one would ever get this, and I had to bide to people's time, so they would have a reason to call in. You know what I'm saying? They would have a reason to call in and actually watch the show. So, you know, that's just why I had the so-called trivia challenge in that sense. Which, if you watch it from the beginning, you can see one of them was the trivia winner, Zach and Doug. They both came on, because I met them one time. You know, this is when my shows were on weird. This is like when I started officially doing it on Thursdays. But of course, my first show was on a Wednesday, and then my next show would be on a Tuesday. And I was like, what? This doesn't make any sense. This is just too weird. So, you know, because to actually tell you why I had it, I had the option to do it on Thursday, but I chose to do it on Wednesdays and Tuesdays instead. So in the end, I ended up switching back to Thursdays, even though I had league, and by league I mean I was bowling, and by bowling I mean bowling lanes and strikes, and well, not me particularly, strikes, maybe one every so often. Well, that's basically how it happened. Looks like we got a call. Hello, you're on Wingless Rats.
How do you have a show? I don't understand the show. Because it's just a bunch of ums, and you're trying to explain yourself, and I don't know what the point of it is. Like, I'm all for, like, independent shows like this, and this is the first time I've turned this on, and I don't have any idea what you're talking about.
Exactly.
Bowling and working.
Well, yeah, you came in at the wrong time. I'm sorry.
Okay, I guess I will need to know when to tune in to watch the show and maintain my sanity, because I think I just lost brain cells.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that.
All right, well, please do better.
All right.
For the sake of everyone watching.
All right, everyone watching, being one or two people flipping through the channel like you. All right, so anyways. Oh man, I really want to finish this so-called story of mine. Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt your story, but don't take any shit from it.
All right. Thank you for whatever. Try not to swear on my show, but let me try to finish what I'm trying to say. So, you know, my shows were on Thursdays in the beginning, where I had every other show being on Thursday, every first and third Thursday of the month, and I would occasionally have the lucky day of having it on the fifth Thursday of every month. But soon later, I would be jumped around schedule-wise, in which I would have some shows on Wednesday, and then some shows I had one Friday, and then went back to Thursdays, and then the producer of the show, or I mean like the MCAT person who controls what goes on MCAT, first of all, told me that my show would be on Fridays from then on, which was let's see, which was probably the beginning of this year of 2007, is when I did most of my shows on Fridays. And then I did shows on Fridays for the next forever, basically. Until now. Well, yeah, of course. I'm definitely going to have to change my schedule around if I'm ever going to have my show again. But, you know, things are not looking up for me for my show-wise. So don't, try not to cry. What I'm basically trying to say, which I'm probably sure you're not crying. Jerks. So anyways, oh man, I'm totally losing my place and train of thought. So after I had my show for a while, my first year of having my show, before Shane left the show, and you don't know who Shane is, but I'm not going to go into describing it. You'll see Shane in this next clip, or this next introduction of my wondrous, fantastic show introduction. By then you can probably hear my interest just going out. So anyways, here's my other clip of my other introduction before, yeah. Which basically you can see from this so-called introduction sequence before I actually push play. You can see I have like 3 different photos and shows the clips of my show beforehand, which I'll be showing you different type. Basically, this is how my introduction looked, but of course I wanted to change it back to that kind of whole elevator music type. So, I'll just show you this and shut up. So anyways, here's my introduction number 2. All right, that was my so-called second introduction, in which I just pieced together some of the clips of my past shows, to make a pathway for like the so-called future of my shows, in which I'll again show you the introduction in which I used for this show. Of course, I really don't want to hear your opinion about my show's introduction, so don't. I'm just going to tell you about how you yourself can do your own so-called introduction, so you can show people your introduction of your life. So you just walk around the street, so the person goes, here's my introduction. You're like, who the heck is Stan? So anyways, man. So I use the editing bay in the MCAT, which they provide for you. They have 3 editing suites in which you can edit using nonlinear format. And I stress when I use the word nonlinear, there's 2 different types of editing. Well, there's probably more, but I'm going to be talking about the non and regular linear editing, which basically I had to learn how to use linear when I did my senior project for the Big Sky High School's so-called senior projects they have each year. So the difference basically, nonlinear is on computer, and linear is using videotapes and just cutting them together. And you use little circle things to do this. But on computer, you get to do your favorite thing, and that's called cutting and pasting. That's basically how you do nonlinear on the computer. There's not much explaining to do, but you can access, you scroll down and just choose different ways, like fade in, fade out. You can adjust the contrast and the color of your so-called video if you ever do one, using MCAT Studios, which is 550 North Reserve, just outside, just across from the Oxford. Actually, wait, the Oxford is that way. The Iron Horse is across the street. Where all the marching people, so-called, every time we have the homecoming parade, it always starts by MCAT, in which last year they showed it, where they had a camera on the roof and they showed it from outside. I could see myself, but of course I was in uniform sync with the marching band, so yeah, that wasn't very helpful trying to find exactly where I was. So if you're ever downtown, you go on North Reserve, 550 North Reserve again. Oh, sorry about that. You go, it's by the red X's, basically, and the train station, which is that way, from my point of view. That way's south, this way's north. That's basically how you can determine north and south. Alright, enough talking about how to get to MCAT. You too can become a producer if you go every 3rd Wednesday of the month from, it starts at 7, so be here at 7 every 3rd Wednesday of the month, and they basically train you, and it costs $20 to get training done, in which you can do a show on your own, which doesn't consist of me going nearly every second of every time. Yes. Somebody call the grammar police, please. So I've been doing that other introduction you saw with the so-called 3 pictures, in which they show what my show is generally about. Oh yeah, I want to talk about Scotty Damas. If you guys don't know who Scotty Damas is, he is a psychic, and he's the reason why the raccoon, the Russian, but it's actually Kyrgyzstan, but it's Russian hat, they put on your head, hey, that kind of stuff. So basically, I talked with an outrageous accent, in which it was a mixture of Jamaican, because I used instead of man, I said mon, Russian, a little bit of Russian, and maybe I heard a little bit of Portuguese in there. But, so I basically was a psychic, and I had the so-called crystal ball, which happened to be a disco ball, in which I told predictions of predictions. That does not make any sense, but you get the idea of I'm a psychic. Oh, like Cleo. I based it off of her, and I wonder if she still does her so-called tele things. Huh. If I had the number, I'd call her right now and just say, "Oh, child, call in now and I will predict your future." Someone of that, but a little more masculine in the tone of Scotty Damas. And I had the only one person who actually enjoyed Scotty Damas. He referred to him as Scotty O'Damas, who also missed him after he was gone. And for that, I really appreciate that after a while. And of course, as soon as I kicked Shane off, I basically kind of try to utilize a new member. I try to, I basically try to replace Shane with a long-haired blonde kid, which you will see in this next introduction. By the way, he got a haircut. He's not long-haired. He's really short-haired. He really chopped it off. So bear with me. I try to replace Shane with him, but pretty much bad mistake. But also it had the kind of the cloud with the silver lining, because he didn't end up doing my show with me. But on the other hand, Shane wasn't on my show, and I know I was a bit of a jerk. I didn't necessarily tell him that I was not doing the show with him anymore. I basically let him figure it out on his own, which took over 2 months for him to actually figure out I was still doing my show. Yeah, but I kind of feel bad about being a jerk about doing that. I kind of wanted just to go up to him and say, Shane, you really bug me. Bleep off. You know what I mean when I say bleep. But, so anyways, I will show to you the introduction, which for some of you who missed from the beginning of my show, who, joined in, I will show you that one introduction once again, which, again, has the elevator music, in which I really enjoy because it's corny, and pretty, yeah, basically any jokes for me that are corny or involve puns are probably one of the most hilarious jokes in my view. Any other jokes for let's say experience, like Jerry Seinfeld observations. Yeah, I really care about a spork, where he talks about how, it's not really a fork, but it's not really a spoon, which you can enjoy having soup, but you can also enjoy having a salad along with the soup. And basically. And okay, now I will give it to the introduction. This is what sucks about being alone on a... Not now. So, this is what really sucks about being on the show alone, is that I had to go back and forth and mess with the electronics back there, and I gotta do the show right here. That's... Alright, I'm trying to talk here. Okay, it's unplugged. Alright, so my show has been going on for about a year. I would gladly say it's been on a year now. And, you know, I was definitely hoping that it would be on for, I would go for the second year total, but things, you know, have things have a way of catching up to you, and you have to put some things aside, and you gotta say, the others say you have to take a break for a while, in which I'll definitely take a break from doing this show for a while. So if you ever see this show, yeah, it'll mostly be reruns from then on. And I'm sorry, but I'm assuming that you don't really care, but it's not my problem. So anyways, as you know, the two winners were the kind of the two beginning guys who, you know, where we had the whole kind of montage about, you know, I kind of had kind of the tough guy image in the beginning part, where the guitar goes whana whana whana, and, you know, with the, you know, of us going, you know, at it with our, you know, like arm wrestling. And I'll tell you how it turned out. I have to get it out of my system. Relax. Sorry about that. So me and Shane, I beat Shane because he's skinny and weak, and I'm, well, shut up. So anyways, I got second place. Second, first, whatever. I went against, I think, Zach. No, it was Doug. The guy with the white shirt. I think his name is Doug. But, you know, I haven't seen him for over a year now. Well, I don't know how long a year was. But basically, that's how it happened. Alright, so the music. Yeah, the music. A lot of the times, I just used the music that was part of a program called Soundtrack Pro, which was on the computer, in which I just kind of formulated different licks of different type of music. I tried to go with a kind of a techno rock mix type of thing. The first one is kind of, the very first one in which, if you were watching, I showed, was kind of like a funk cowbell, because I started out with a little bit of cowbell. I don't know, because I just, you know, the cowbell was alright. I like the cowbell, in which I have my own. That'll pretty much be one of the last times I'll be doing that on my show. Well, for this season. So if you're ever in the neighborhood or whatever, you should come by to MCAT and check out what's going on, what's happening over at MCAT, and you'll be, you know, for some people who actually want to do a lot of this broadcasting. For people who are interested in broadcasting, MCAT is probably one of the best starts you can ever hope to find. Because me personally, I'm hopefully getting into a field of broadcasting. Well, not being on the camera, because considering the fact I'm umming a lot, I will work on it, and I will pretty much want to be one of those people behind the scenes. Because, you know, one of my dreams is either to be a producer or director. But I'm kind of leaning more into being a director, because I you know, a lot of times I just want to get things done for the better of the project in broadcasting. But that's just my so-called dream and my ambition, my goals in the future of me to be involved in broadcasting, in which is what I did my senior project on. If you don't know what a senior project is, it's you have to be a senior in high school. You have to either go to Hellgate or Big Sky. And I just learned recently that Sentinel High School, Sentinel, is finally going to start doing their senior projects. So no one can actually, as you know, a lot of people transfer to Sentinel just for that one reason, which I know one person. I'm not going to mention his name. You know, basically, so he graduated without doing the senior project. He didn't want to do the senior project. He didn't bother, you know, writing the dreaded 8 to 10 pages of writing, but you have to make it a certain format, so you can't work on line spacings. It has to be double spaced, 16 font. But it was interesting. My paper, I was glad to get passed through my paper. It was hard work, but I did it. I got done with it. Probably the easiest part of doing my senior project would have to be speaking for the people, just kind of like giving my presentation of my project, in which I did a broadcast journalism, in which I went down to KPAX, had a little broadcasting type thing with some of the people. Met some of the people. They're pretty nice. They're cool guys, totally. And they told me that they swear a lot, and I obviously, what I told them? I told them, you obviously don't know what it's like to be in high school, because that's all I ever hear. So that was one of the first things I ever kind of like mentioned to them, that I really don't mind swearing. It's just that people who swear too much have watched Pulp Fiction too much. So anyways, I like to end the show with a nice note and saying, I will see you again someday, just not regularly. All right. Oh yeah, by the way, if you ever want to know what's in the mystery box, it's a cheapo rubber band gun. Thanks again, Bugs Bunny. I will see you later.